Alright, so today we're going to go over some new vocabulary words, which are parts of the brain. And I want to go ahead and show you how you would draw the parts of the brain. I'm going to be using this Sharpie here to help me draw the parts of the brain. First thing you're going to do is a circle. Alright, so that's the first thing I did there, was a circle. Then you're gonna do, it's like a long egg-shaped circle, like an egg on its side. Okay. And then what we're gonna do is we could go either side. I'm gonna go ahead and go this side. We're gonna put like another circle, like a half circle, towards the back. All right, towards the back. And then after you've done that, then the next thing to do would be like a P. You know, if you do the letter P, so you're not putting it like this part of the P without closing it out, and then bringing it down. So now what I have is a very good outline of the brain parts. Alright, so now that we've drawn it all up, now we can start labeling them. So I would label the part right here. This would be the cerebellum. See, it has the word bell in it. So if I look at this like if it's a bell, this would be like the bottom of a bell. You know, if it was moving side to side, this would be like the bottom part of a bell. So cerebellum, I would say like this is like the bottom part of a bell. To remember, this is cerebellum here in the bottom. Alright, so that's the first part you're going to have to know. The next part you would need to know is the frontal. The frontal. So the frontal, we're going to go ahead and close this out here like this. Alright, and we're going to call this, really the frontal could be bigger, you know, but whatever. We're going to go ahead and call this the frontal. And this is the frontal lobe, because there's 4 lobes here. But this is the first one we're going to go into, which is frontal lobe, and it is across. Notice the frontal lobe is across the cerebellum. So a little bottom part of the bell, cerebellum, across from it you find frontal. That's important. You're going to need to learn that, because you don't want to go and say, oh, the frontal's on the right, because then later I'll show you if I flip the brain over, then the frontal will end up on the left. So the correct way to find the frontal lobe is, this is the cerebellum. You find the cerebellum right here in the bottom, and you know that the frontal is across. There's nothing underneath the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe, there's nothing underneath it. That's the way to remember frontal lobe. It's right here in the front, and there's nothing underneath it. Alright, so the next one we're going to go into is the parietal lobe, and that's going to be at the top. So for the parietal lobe, what I'll do is I'm going to start here in the middle of the frontal lobe here, and then I'm just going to go this way with it. So I started in the middle, I started going towards the back, but then I started arching up again. So that's how I did the parietal lobe. Now I'll go ahead and label it out. Alright. That's the parietal lobe. Alright. And that's the top, at the top here. So now, let's do the next one. Alright, so now the next one is going to be your occipital lobe. Now to do the occipital lobe, you could just do another line going down. So it's kind of like you made like a Y right here, like a sideways Y right there to separate. And now this is going to be the back here, and this is your occipital. The occipital lobe. Let's put the word lobe. Alright. So that's the occipital lobe. It is in the back. It's towards the back. So this will be like where your forehead is. Alright. This is the top of your head. This is the back of your head. And then underneath the back you got your cerebellum. Which, always remember the cerebellum. Across from the cerebellum, that's where you go to your frontal, and that's be like where your forehead is. This is the top of the head. This is the back of the head. So And then the last one, you don't have to do any lines for it because you've already done it. Because you have the frontal here, the parietal here, the occipital here. So for the last one, all you do is you just label that one in, which it's going to be temporal. The temporal lobe. All right, the temporal lobe, it's on the side of your head, like the temple. All right, it's on the side of your head, it's your temple. All right, parietal, I forgot to put lobe. Let me go ahead and put that there. All right, and now those are your 4 lobes. Frontal is where your forehead is. Parietal is up top. Occipital is in the back. Temporal is on where your temple is. Cerebellum would be like underneath, right, in the back of your head, but underneath. So that's cerebellum. Okay, and you know the frontal. You could always find frontal by saying cerebellum is across from frontal. So I find cerebellum, across from it I got frontal. And then you just have to remember the term FPOT. And what is FPOT? So the good term to remember is FPOT. FPOT is what? F-P-O-T. Frontal, parietal, occipital, temporal. FPOT. So you just go from frontal, which you can find because it's across from cerebellum. And then after that, so frontal, FPOT, F-P-O-T. And you just go from right to left, like in a little circle. And you can learn those. So those are the lobes. Notice there's 4 lobes. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, these make up the cerebrum. So all this, see if I could find another color here. I'm out of colors, unfortunately. But all this up here would be your cerebrum. Here I found a color I could use. I'll use the is this red? I don't even know if it's red. Let's see. It's not coming out too nice, but whatever. So all 4 lobes up here. All that would be your cerebrum. Okay. Now notice that sounds very similar to cerebellum. Cerebrum sounds very similar to cerebellum. Remember cerebellum, that's the bell at the bottom. Cerebrum is the 4 lobes up top. All right. So now what we have left here is the brainstem. All right. So what you got left is the brainstem. And it's like a stem. See how that's like a stem right there? And then right here you see this little P. Remember we said it was going to be like a P? Well, that's pons. Pons for the P that's there. Like the little P looking thing. All right, so those are the parts of the brain. You need to know them. You just need to know them just like this. On the test, they'll show you a diagram like this of different parts of the brain. Now this is from looking from this direction, going this way, looking towards, you know, with the frontal on the right. All right, so now the next thing I want you guys to do is I want you to draw the brain just like you did here, but we're gonna go ahead and draw it flipped in the other direction. All right, so again, you're gonna do a half an egg. All right, and then underneath it, but now on this side, instead of doing it on this side like we did the first time, right, I'm gonna do it on this side. So underneath it, I'm gonna go ahead and put the cerebellum, the little bottom of the bell there, right? And then I'm gonna go ahead and do the brainstem with the pons. Remember that little P, the pons? Now I'm changing the direction on it, right? Then we gotta do the lobes, right? This is the cerebrum, all right? This top part is the cerebrum. This is the cerebellum, the little bottom of the bell, right? So now we're gonna do the 4 lobes of the cerebrum, which first we gotta do is the frontal. So remember the frontal, if this is the cerebellum, frontal is across from it. Okay, and now we're gonna go ahead and cut down the middle here, and we're gonna do like a Y. See, like the first top it's like a sideways Y. I came up. I'm going to go ahead and go down, do the other bottom part of the Y. So now I have it pretty much done. Now it's just labeling it out. Remember, cerebellum across is frontal, right? Then we on the top we have parietal, and then occipital, and then temporal, F-pot, right? And then here's your pons, here's your brainstem, all right, and here's your cerebellum. All right, so far the paper we have these two. All right. It's important to note that the frontal, again, the frontal is now on the left side, where before in the other picture it was on the right, right? Now it's on the left. How do you find the frontal? Again, across from the cerebellum is the frontal. All right. So you've done this, then you could go ahead and do the next thing. So now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to do a top view. So for a top view, we're going to go ahead and do an egg again. All right. And now that we've done the egg, we're going to cut it in half this time. Going straight down. Because now it's like we're looking at the brain from the top. All right. Now once you do that, you can go ahead and divide it. So put a little line across here, and then another one going this way. So now I have my frontal, okay, I have my parietal, right, and I have my occipital. Okay, but I'm missing temporal. Why am I missing temporal here? Because you're looking at it from the top. So being that I'm looking at it from the top, temporal would be on the side, underneath there on the side, so we don't see it. We don't see the cerebellum either. Right? We don't see the brainstem either because we're looking at it from a top view. So we're just going to see the frontal, the parietal, and the occipital. All right, so that is how your paper should look, and that is what you should be turning in, something like that.